University of Banff. Just let us know when you're ready. So you're
Yeah.
Wait, should we say it ready or? We're ready.
Okay. Yeah, so here's our proposal for reducing the congestion in Banff.
So Banff is a small town in the middle of a national park, and this makes it unique because it's the only municipality situated within a national park in Canada. It's about 4 square miles in length, and it's surrounded entirely by the national park, which makes it difficult to add anything more or improve existing infrastructure.
Yeah, so as mentioned, it's one of the most visited national parks in Canada, hosting 4.29 million people last season. There's also a high use of private vehicles for tourism, mainly coming from Calgary. And another issue is that there's congestion. Congestion often reaches critical levels, especially during peak season, which is July and August.
Here we can see a graph of congestion and two-way traffic counts over the years. So this is from both entrances going into the town of Banff. And this shows just the two-way counts. And you can see that we've basically returned to pre-COVID levels of traffic. Taking a look at the peak seasons, you can see that Banff has set out a threshold of around 24,000 vehicles per day as their kind of gridlock limit. And if it gets over that, traffic increases, delays increase, and they start having to use green overriding. And as you can see, last season, we had over 60 days where it reached above this threshold and even going into the 30,000 cars per day. So there's a lot of cars and we need to reduce that number.
Yeah, so our proposals. We've decided to do a 2-phase proposal. Phase 1 is increase the mass transit to and from Calgary. And phase 2 is increasing accessibility within Banff and this surrounding park. So phase 1, to increase mass transit to and from Calgary. So why is transit important to connect Calgary and Banff? There's currently a lot of congestion within Banff, as discussed, and bringing people in by bus is a lot less traffic, getting personal vehicles off the road. And so there's currently the on-it transit service, but it would be important to improve the current transit. So how can we improve the transit service? By providing more service throughout the year. Currently it runs from May to Thanksgiving, May to October. And other improvements can be creating incentives for people to take the bus. And a final approach to improve the service is to implement bus-only lanes in congested areas during peak hours and seasons. So, sorry. So implement, yeah. Sorry. Why is it like implementing bus lanes? So why should we implement bus lanes? Bus lanes can improve travel times and reliability, which also increases ridership over time. Littman reports that 10% cut in travel times can increase ridership by 4 to 6%. So just increasing bus lanes would improve travel times and ridership. So how to implement bus lanes? Bus lanes can be implemented in the forms of busways, freeway lanes, and arterial streets. Each can be used in different uses of congestion. So one example is bus lane example in Toronto, where the GO Transit bus bypass lanes on the Don Valley Parkway in Toronto. It allows GO Transit buses to bypass congestion on the Don Valley Parkway using the shoulder. It was a new thing that first opened in 2010. So how can this be applicable to connecting Calgary to Banff? Using similar infrastructure solutions to allow on-it buses to bypass congestion during peak times in areas along the highway connecting Calgary to Banff. And other solutions could be building a new lane if the frequency is like needed to get bus only lanes. So, and then if we're increasing buses to Banff, we can also propose a new bus terminal within Banff to increase just ease of access for visitors in and out of the city. So an important thing would be where would we put this bus terminal? So I ran a site suitability analysis to look at distance from highways and distance from the city, as well as distance from local transit. So it'd be important. I wanted the bus terminal to be close to the highway, but within transit stops while also being like further away from the downtown's core. So this is in the red boxes where I propose to be having a new bus terminal. And currently there's like commercial kind of, and there's a dog park. So existing land could be rezoned and made into a bus terminal.
Okay, so for phase 2, we're looking at the transportation within Banff itself. Through reading literature, we found that bus rapid transit systems, novel clustering algorithms, and just addressing the local transit routes are our 3 main factors to consider. Now, for the first 2, those require algorithms, which with only using open source data, we can't actually run those. However, it would give us ideas as to where the clustering is happening, what time of day, that sort of things, which would be factored into the final step when we consider the local transit challenges. So here, this is just through on the left, we're looking at the shortest road. Now, this is only taking into consider the length of the roads and not actually the speed limits or where these clusters are happening. So that's something that can be later incorporated into these algorithms, but it runs a lot faster than using ArcGIS or QGIS to do those analysis, and all the data on this image is open source.
Yeah, so we also have to consider limitations when building in Banff. Obviously, the town site is pretty small, so we're limited in that sense, and it's also largely already developed, so we have to find space that isn't already developed, which is hard to come by. Of course, we're in a national park, so we have to consider the environment and the impact on wildlife. We've done this by trying to use as much as existing infrastructure as possible, rerouting buses using roads that already exist. And we also have this legal restriction where we need to still provide access to the park and access to the town from both the federal laws and the provincial laws. So that stops us from doing things like toll charges or congestion pricing. So we've tried to use more positive ways of giving people alternatives to driving rather than a hostile kind of pricing them out of it. For our community analysis, this would benefit them as there's less congestion downtown. In a survey, respondents said that they strongly agree that congestion, especially during peak season, is a major issue. And our plan also outlines improving public transit, which would affect both tourists and residents alike. We also have environmental impacts and benefits from this. So less cars on the road means reducing CO2 emissions. Rome has already started to use electric buses in their fleet, which also reduces CO2 with that. Less cars mean less road encounters with wildlife, as well as less noise pollution and smog within the park and the town itself.
So here we have a short-term timeline, taking into consideration that we have 2 different phases. So implementing the bus in between Calgary and Banff first, starting with just weekends and then bringing it into peak hours based off of supply and demand. Then introducing phase 2, first with more desirable locations, so where those big clusters are happening, where we need to get people moving faster. Then slowly increasing the frequency, and after like a year and a half, reevaluating, see, is this working, is this not? What do we have to change, and what new data do we have to update these algorithms that we've created?
And so our goals for this proposal is to reduce car dependency within Banff, especially people traveling from outside of Banff, and improve local transit for everyone traveling to Banff and within it.
So our solutions is to implement a streamlined bus service, improving the transit between Calgary and Banff, and is also improving the routing and frequency within the town of Banff and throughout different areas within the park. And future considerations is to do an analysis on the feasibility of implementing these new services and connecting impacts, just looking at how can the increased bus service between Calgary and Banff impact the improved local transit within Banff and vice versa. So is there an increase in frequency by the buses? Does that need more local transit to connect within the park?
And that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?